What's up, guys? It's Dan Man, and welcome back. Today, bringing you a huge guide, Echoes of War, the new boss, Bane of Lures. I've done my very best to put this guide together as optimal as possible, bringing you guys the best strategy. At the end of the video, I will have a full clear on the dungeon, so you guys can watch the video from start to finish on watching another team beat it from the Korean server. And I owe a huge thank you to Lucatir and Loon Cherry Rose to my muse, Cat. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so getting into it here, we got a couple skill builds that are mandatory. Healers, you have to bring Purification and Divine Heal. Tanks, you have a little bit of an option. Your main focus should be bringing Halt, the interrupt skill. However, if you cannot survive, you can bring Warcry. The main reason here is you do not want to take away from the DPS and make them bring an interrupt, because this is a severe DPS race where you need to burst down a lot of shields in this dungeon. So tanks should be bringing Halt, as well as you need to bring Shield. Alright, just to give you guys a little bit of a key breakdown here. Table of contents. We have the passives coming up and the boss's skills, as well as the main primary mechanics with the face and horn mechanics, and the minion mechanics. Followed by, I'm going to give you guys the full breakdown of the most optimal strategy, the group coordination, the game plan for combat, and then ending on the note that we're going to have the finale of the summary and final tips, and I have a major disclaimer and warning. Again, I'm going to end the video with a full breakdown gameplay, showing you guys beating the boss from the start to the finish. Alright, passive, mechanics, and strategy. So this first part here, actually you can find in the game's tooltip. Pretty defined clearly, but just to go over it, the Horn of Bane skill is a passive that gains Power of Bane at 7 points per second. At 250 points, the healer must use Cleanse to prevent a 50% damage buff and severe damage over time. At 500 points, triggers the skill Calamity Sandstorm. The healer again must cleanse to avoid debuff, reducing accuracy by 35%. And during the sandstorm, you must break the shield immediately to end the sandstorm damage. Now, Horn of Frenzy isn't very well defined in the game, in the tooltip. Picture to the right is actually the gauge that you'll be following. It fills up slowly. You'll see that throughout this video. The gauge builds towards a team wiping ability. Destroying one of the horns resets this gauge. DPS prioritizes one horn, ensuring it is destroyed before the gauge maxes out. Alright, here's a full detailed breakdown. The mask explained. The mask has 4 pieces: the chin, the eye, the forehead, and then the horns. Every time that one of these pieces fills up, the boss's skill upgrades and it becomes something stronger. So as you can see, the first piece here, now when you reach 250 points, you upgrade the chin from Ascension to Open Sky. That's the skill ability, from Ascension to Open Sky. Tanks must use their shields. Healers, right after the boss casts and finishes the skill, use Purification. Part 2 is the Eye. When this skill activates, it's at 500 points. Calamity Sandstorm becomes Calamity Blackstorm. You must break the shield to end the storm. Healers, after the boss's skill ends, use Purification. Next, we have the forehead. When that is filled, you have Great Earthquake becomes Great Extinction. Healers must use Divine Healing. Lastly, we have the horns. When the horns fill up, it's instant death. It's RIP. You'll see. I'll get a video into it. Alright, now here you can see Horn of Frenzy. When this is activated, it will completely destroy your graphics card. So now we're going to go into the mechanics, full breakdown of those skills, and what you do during those skills. Starting off, we have Ascension and Open Sky. Tanks shield a massive AoE. Healers cleanse debuffs after the boss skill ends. Then you have Calamity Sandstorm and Blackstorm. Prioritize shield breaking to prevent Power of Bane from stacking. As these storms are raging, Power of Bane is increasing. Then we move on to Greater Earthquake and Extinction. Healers use Divine Healing. During Earthquake, spawns 2 Drakes. That's your first minions that you run into, or adds. During Extinction, it spawns the T12 boss. And this is why you bring Halt, for the tanks need to interrupt the minions' abilities. I know this shows you guys the skills in action. Ascension is on the left, Open Sky is on the right. Not too much of a difference here, just visually you'll notice that the Open Sky is a darker attack, but that's when you'll know that the ability has upgraded. Alright, now Sandstorm and Black Storm. Again, Sandstorm is on the left, Black Storm is on the right. Not too much of a difference here visually. The only thing major to note is the bar at the top. You'll see that's the shield bar. During these skills, you want to break down that shield as fast as possible. That will end the storm. And another major thing to note, while these storms are raging, you can see by the gauge bars, they are going up much quicker while the storms are active. All right, Earthquake and Extinction. Again, Earthquake on the left, Extinction on the right. Now, you'll note for Earthquake on the left, it's a little hard to see. There's so much going on during this raid, it's insane. But you can tell by the HP bars, you'll see the 2 Drakes show up. So tanks, this is where you really need to pay attention to when the Drakes show up during this mechanic and interrupt their abilities. And then on the right side, the Extinction, you can see the T12 boss. Again, you can tell by his HP bar, he's there. All right, face and horn mechanics. Again, a lot of this information here you'll see in the tooltip in the game, but I've added extra strategy and some tips that they don't really tell you. So the body, you gain fear stacks. In the horn, you gain abrasion stacks. At 10 stacks, damage to that target part is reduced 90% for 30 seconds. Stacks only apply when continuously hitting the target. When the stacks appear, when you have 10 stacks of fear stacks, switch to the horns. When you have 10 stacks of abrasion stacks, switch to the body. Now for switch timing, only switch targets once the debuff icon appears. Premature switching risks double debuffs. You'll have both debuffs. Then this is leading to simultaneous damage reductions across both targets. You won't be able to attack either. All right, so bear with me with these graphics because it's not easy to get pictures of this stuff, but I did my best. I tried to get you guys the most clear that I could. So on the left, you have the picture of the horns. When you have the debuff from the horns, this is the image that you'll see above your character's head. Then in the middle, you have the picture of the body. That's the icon for the debuff of the body. And if you have both double debuffs, this is what it will look like. It'll literally give you both images. It's a good idea to zoom in when you're in the game because you'll be able to zoom in right above your character and you'll be able to see things a little clearer. So zoom in, zoom out. You got to kind of get used to it. All right, you guys, the minions or the adds and all the mechanics. The Calamity Drakes are spawned by Earthquake. Tanks need to interrupt immediately on these Drakes. The Calamity Bite skill. You're going to have to watch very carefully as there's a very tiny gauge. And if you miss it, this deals major damage. Then we have the T12 boss minion, which is spawned by the Greater Extinction mechanic. And tanks need to prioritize interrupting 2 of this boss's skills. Blinding Mist, it summons a sandstorm that deals damage over time, reduces your whole team's accuracy, and it increases the boss's and the minions' evasion. Then it deals Frenzied Storm. It summons a firestorm. This deals damage over time, and it boosts the attack speed and the power of the boss and the T12 boss. So both of them will gain this benefit. All right, you guys, we're almost there. I've given you guys a full breakdown now at this point of all of the boss's mechanics, the minions, the moves, everything that you need to focus on. Now we're going to get into the brunt of the most optimal strategy of how to actually beat this thing. Group coordination, combat plan, and then I got a bunch of final tips for you guys. Let's go. All right, optimal strategy for group coordination. DPS split into separate groups, balanced groups, to handle shield breaking on horns. High spec DPS may operate solo, and I'll get more into that on the next section. Healers, you focus on cleanse, the power of Bane debuffs, and use divine healing during the earthquake mechanics. Tanks focus on shield during the AoEs and interrupt minions during earthquake and the extinction phases. All right, optimal strategy. Here's a detailed breakdown for the combat plan. Preparation: assign roles for shield breaking, interrupts, and cleanses. Make sure that you have the most appropriate skills equipped. Now, phased combat, so during combat, destroy a single horn during Horn of Frenzy. As the mask is filling, you need to destroy one horn to reset the mask. To do this, alternate between body and horns based on the debuff stacks. Now for shield management, use your Melamon skill for efficient shield breaking during Sandstorm and Blackstorm. Now I know I've thrown a lot at you guys. This is a very complex dungeon. I wanted to kind of take a step back, give it a second. Whew. Let's go into a little bit more of the combat plan. For the debuff mechanics, you want to be target swapping to reset the debuffs. The debuffs are individual. You have 4 DPS. So when one DPS is attacking a horn and he builds 10 stacks and he gains the debuff, that debuff is only on him. He can then freely switch to the body and attack the body until he gains another 10 stacks from the body, in which time the debuff from the horns would have disappeared. Keeping this in mind, you want to split into groups. So for group assignment, pick 2 DPS to go into Group A, 2 DPS to go into Group B. Group A, start on the horns. Switch to the main body after you gain the debuff. And likewise, Group B, start on the body, and then you switch to the horns when you've gotten the debuff. So the 2 groups will constantly be rotating. The other main factor to consider is the shields. So for dealer roles, choose one member from each group, from Group A and Group B. We'll name them A1 and B1. Dedicate them to the horns specifically, or the body, just to keep rotating on the horn or the body. Your 2 higher DPS of each group, we'll label them as A2 and B2. You handle the shields. If you can take them out, just the 2 of you, taking out a shield efficiently, this will be the best strategy for taking this boss down. You want to use your Melamon skills only really in assigned situations, meaning communicate and alternate your Melamon skills between shields. If you guys are having a severe time with the shields, you could take your most strongest DPS and have him specifically just focus on the body and the horns and him continuing to rotate, while the other 3 DPS can focus on the shields. You really need to adjust dynamically based on the party and your overall battle situation. All right, final tips, and really at this point it's an overall summary. Pre-fight, make sure that you assign positions for everyone, assign tasks clearly for DPS, interrupts, and cleanses. For awareness, tanks need to handle the minion spawns, so be aware. Healers need to cleanse at the thresholds when the mask has completed each stage. Targeting, make sure that you know that you're rotating the DPS focused based on the debuffs. This next tip is huge. Use voice chat if possible, or just stick to the visual cues for coordination. For the shields, prioritize fast and coordinated shield breaking. And lastly, communication. Debuff stacks, shield statuses, and minion spawns. Again, this is why voice chat would be huge. Make sure you guys are calling everything out. If not, again, just look for the visual cues. All right, disclaimer, let me read this to you real quick. The information I'm bringing you in this video is from the Korean version of the game. There are specifically 3 skills that when they release on global server are highly likely to have different names: Open Sky, Calamity Blackstorm, and Greater Extinction. Do keep in mind, this will just be the names changing. The mechanics and the strategy I provided in this video will still be viable, optimal, and is precise. If there are any further changes or issues that need to be addressed, I will include them in the video's description at a later date, including the updated skills names if there are any. So make sure to check the description to be updated with any changes. Thank you. Oh my god, you guys, we finally made it. We are here, playing the end video, full clear guide. Just want to show you guys that they're, just to note, point out, they're level 86 clearing this. So this is an extremely difficult raid. It's also a carbon copy of Trial 14. So this is essentially also a Trial 14 guide. Because when Trial 14 releases, this has every single mechanic that Trial 14 will have. So yeah, bit of an insight. Yeah, take this time now to just cover anything that I forgot, but I think we're good. I think I've gone over everything in depth. Yeah, you know what? I'll leave you guys to it. Enjoy the rest of the video. I wish you guys the best of luck. Everybody have a great night. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more videos, more guides, more fun stuff. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one.